Hello, Justin here again. Alright, so I recently made a video that I am, as you probably know if you saw it, I am a WGU student once again. So I am currently in the Masters of Education in Learning and Technology, which is different than the Masters of Science in Curriculum and Instruction that I did in 2020. So I came on here just to share a little bit about my mindset around doing more schooling, because it's very possible that some people might look at someone like me and question the authenticity of why I would be doing so many programs, putting myself through this schooling system over and over again, because for many students going to school is very challenging, and not only that, it can be painful for them. It can be grueling and exhausting. And I want to talk a little bit about how my experience as a student is very different. It wasn't always different than that. I think early on in my schooling, I found school quite difficult and challenging, but I've evolved in my perspective and my interest in learning. So I'd like to talk about that. Also, and how that relates to just this ongoing curiosity about most things in life, which constantly motivates me to want to learn more. So stay tuned. So when I was younger, I have an identical twin brother, and him and we always had learning difficulties in grade school, at a very young age. So if I remember even looking recently at these report cards that my mom kept, and I looked at our reading scores, and they were very, very low, actually failing. We were always at least a grade or two behind reading. We had to kind of go into these special reading groups, not even groups, they were just one-on-ones with different reading specialists to try to improve our reading. And I always felt a low self-efficacy, which meant a low belief or confidence in my abilities in school, because reading is such an integral part to most parts of schooling, whatever discipline you're studying. I never felt like I was a good student. However, I knew I was creative, and I always challenged my instructors and my teachers from a young age to let me to do creative projects and alternative projects, but at the time the school system didn't really support that, and so there was a lot of pushback. So basically I kind of stumbled my way through most of grade school. I did get actually awards and kind of accolades in certain disciplines, anything that was creative related. I studied apparel design in high school, and that was actually my first associate's degree was in apparel design. And there was a technical side to apparel design, but there was also a very creative side, and I just excelled at that, and I put my everything into it. Courses like music and courses like English, I would be able to do, even though I couldn't read very well, I could think very critically about different concepts and philosophies and ideologies as it relates to themes. And so I had this mixed feeling about myself as a student. I knew I had potential, but I still didn't get very good grades in sciences and math, and even in English I still struggled a bit because I could barely read a book. So, a lot of times I would have to watch movies of books in order to understand, and I could then create arguments around my understanding from movies. So the reason why I'm telling you this is there was this dissonance inside, this mixed feeling of wanting to learn more, but also not wanting to learn more because I felt like I couldn't necessarily go to university. I went to a college. So in Canada, we distinguish college and university. I think in the States, not so much. It's all kind of college. I went to a community college, and that's where I studied apparel design, and I kind of thought I was only good at creative work, and I never imagined ever going to a university and being academic in my way of thinking. I didn't think I could. I didn't even think I could actually get into university. But something I realized about myself is that I've always been interested in everything, absolutely everything. From a young age, when people would talk about their jobs or when people would talk about their interests, it didn't matter if it was hockey, it didn't matter if it was art making, it didn't matter if it was hopscotch. I just always had a bunch of questions for people. I always was the type of person to be asking lots and lots of questions. And I don't know if that's something that can be trained into people, possibly to some degree, but it's very innate an inherent quality of me in being very curious. I suppose it just fascinates me to know that other people like certain things, whether I like it or not, and I'm always curious about their psychology and what makes them engaged in something, and then maybe I can get engaged in it too. Kind of going back to my story in school, and I ended up studying multiple degrees in different types of design. I worked in different design fields. I got really good at kind of almost being like an expert generalist in the field of design. Like I really understood the way designers thought. So design thinking, I understood processes of design, and I could really use kind of both sides of my brain. So being able to think of new creative ideas, but also there's a problem-solving side of design, you know, because designers are not just arbitrarily designing for the sake of design. They are actually trying to solve problems and solution find and kind of find the needs of people and then solve towards their needs. Now, even when I ended up going into university, and that's where I studied more design, and I still found a lot of the courses that were in the social sciences fascinating, like psychology and anthropology and sociology, and I studied human ecology and just different types of humanities. I found it interesting, but very challenging. Even I took an English course and I had to drop it many times just because I still struggled with reading, because I found myself not being able to read in a linear way. I could pick up a book and read parts of it, and then my brain could create connections between different ideas, but I felt like, especially historical books where they really looked at a linear time frame, my mind could not process information in that way. And I had, again, still kind of this feeling like something, like my confidence wasn't quite there. But here I was again, being fascinated by all of these disciplines. So I kind of learned that it was okay for me to not necessarily be an A student at everything. And that helped me kind of do school with ease, that I wasn't an A student in all my social sciences courses, but I tried to kind of get better grades in my major, which was in design. And even if I didn't do well in all of those areas, because design was very specialized and the courses were quite rigorous, so I didn't always get great marks, but I tried my absolute best. And I found myself pushing myself to constantly want to improve. And I think that's why I'm good at something like design, because design is a constant iterative process. We were going through cycles of kind of gaining feedback, resolving and refining your design artifact or whatever you're creating, and then getting more feedback, and it's an ongoing process. So eventually I was lucky to get a teaching job, and that led me to want to look at fields like education and get maybe more credentials in that area, not just for the sake of collecting a credential, but also just to learn more, because I found that a lot of instructors and teachers and even professors in university, they were really good and experts in their area, like they had a prowess for whatever they were good at, their discipline-specific knowledge. However, education wasn't trained as much, and I thought, you know what if I kind of go out of my way to train myself about like certain principles and practices of pedagogy, or what they call andragogy, which is the study of adult learning and teaching and learning. And that's what led me into WGU in the education discipline. Now, what I really discovered through WGU is that they honor your abilities as they are. So, I have this actual natural ability to write. Again, like I was from a young age, I could create connections between different concepts. And so that's why I feel I am good at writing, as I can read something, it's just a snapshot of something and a snapshot here, and I can find the intersections between those things. And because I did a previous master's in a brick and mortar, I had no choice but to get good at writing, because, I wrote a 250-page thesis as part of that master's, and the iterations of writing was just insane. It was over a whole year. It felt like I was writing, and my supervisor was so detailed in their feedback for my writing that I learned a lot of writing conventions. So that helped kind of improve my confidence and abilities around writing. So here I am now, kind of in a place where I've actually done this previous WGU program, and now in this learning and technology program, considering also a doctoral degree. And I kind of asked myself, like, what is the aim? Like, what is the purpose of all this schooling? For me, I really do value, and I'm motivated by getting an in-depth understanding of something. It isn't always about putting yourselves on a higher ground and trying to have a level of prestige. And it's possible that some people go to school for that. I mean, obviously, people could look at my educational history, even my work history, and say, wow, like, he's accomplished a lot. But, you know, I don't even really look at those things too much. What I look at is my brain and my mind, and, you know, and I'm kind of motivated by challenge. So I guess the point of me sharing this is that there will always be some sort of motivation behind doing more schooling or advancing the way you think about life. And for yourself, there has to be some sort of reason behind that. That has to be clear to you, or else it would be hard to go through this path if you want to do a master's, or you want to do additional bachelor's degree, or even go into a doctoral program, which is going to be quite rigorous. There has to be a driving force. Without that, I can't imagine that it would be easy or enjoyable at all to stay committed to a path of learning. So what I like about my channel is that I hope I attract people that are also interested in learning more, advancing their way of thinking, and getting excited about that. So I'm curious to know from your perspective in your life, what is motivating you to study? What is motivating you to learn more, to advance, to augment your way of thinking? So if you stayed around this long, feel free to share that below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. I hope to maybe give some updates on how the WG program is going. And, you know, I suppose I'll be finishing a few courses soon, so I'll give an update on that shortly. All right, see you in the next video.